Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is Andriy Kostin. He is Ukraine's prosecutor general and he is with us from Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Kostin.
Thank you. Good evening.
The United States is accusing Russia of committing crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Your office has been investigating crimes since the beginning of the war 1 year ago. What have you found?
From the very first day of full-scale Russian invasion on 24th of February 2022, we have registered more than 68,000 incidents of war crimes committed by Russia in Ukraine and against Ukrainians. And of course, the massive scale of these war crimes could lead to a level of crimes against humanity. We all understand that this type of crime, which is massive in its nature, could be prosecuted not only in Ukraine, but also on international level. And the International Criminal Court is one of the forums which is relevant for the investigation and prosecution exactly crimes against humanity, together with war crimes and together with crime of genocide. We in Ukraine are prosecuting and will prosecute and try in Ukrainian courts, I believe, 99+% of all war crimes committed in Ukraine by Russians. But we also fully support the unity in our joint fight for justice, which we feel from many jurisdictions, including France and including United States, and also by international institutions like the ICC, which I mentioned. And of course, we also want to make Putin and his team responsible for the committing of the leadership crime, the crime of aggression. In order to make him accountable, we need to establish a special tribunal for the crime of aggression of Russia against Ukraine.
What type of crimes specifically have you found? I mean, we've all seen Bucha, we've all seen Mariupol, but I'm assuming among those 68,000 plus, and it's adding by the day, what struck you especially in terms of the patterns that you're seeing?
First of all, the pattern, all types of war crimes committed in Kyiv region and which shocked all civilized world at the beginning of April of the last year include intentional killing of civilians, indiscriminate shelling of residential buildings, inhuman relation to Ukrainians and to civilians, torture and ill treatment, sexual violence, pillage on massive scale, destroying of private property and critical civil infrastructure. So these are the main elements of war crimes committed by Russia. And all these war crimes were committed in Kyiv region. When we liberated Kharkiv region in September of last year and Kherson region in November of last year, we have found the same types of crimes committed on that territories. And also we have found that many of these crimes, including intentional killing of civilians, including forced displacement, and I would also add the forced deportation of Ukrainians to Russia and to Belarus, including Ukrainian children with their further illegal adoption in Russia. All these type of crimes we found in Kharkiv and Kherson region months after April and months after March of last year, when these crimes were committed on the territory of Kyiv region. We all remember now, we all know the names of Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka, Vorzel, Dimir, and many other towns close to Kiev where mass atrocities were committed. And these create the pattern of conduct of Russians against Ukrainians. And this policy is a deliberate policy which was incited by the highest military and political leadership of Russian Federation.
There's a lot of talk about the president of the private security company Wagner, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin. Have you found evidence that they, in addition to Russian troops, could be involved in such crimes, and of possible coordination between them and the Russian military and maybe civilian leadership?
First of all, we have found the evidences of coordination of their activity between Russian armed forces and a so-called Wagner group. And collecting these evidences, we have informed on suspicion to the leader of Wagner group, Prigozhin. This happened just a few weeks ago. And we are also collecting evidences of the other representatives of Wagner group with regard to war crimes committed by them. So this is, of course, a big case, and we will follow investigation. But the most important is that we identified and collected evidences of committing war crimes by the leader of this terrorist organization, Wagner Group, Prigozhin. And we informed him about suspicion, and then this case will follow up to be investigated now in absentia. But who knows, maybe at some stage we will capture this criminal and make him liable before Ukrainian courts.
Right. A center to investigate crimes of aggression against Ukraine by Russia is to be set up soon in The Hague, in the Netherlands. You mentioned earlier the special tribunal that you want to set up to try Russia for the crime of aggression. The ICC has no jurisdiction about this crime. We know many Western countries are rather reluctant. Do you think that this idea of a special tribunal is gaining traction? And is it for you because you want to see Vladimir Putin sit in front of a court?
First of all, I would like to mention that for any Ukrainian, it doesn't matter in front of which court will sit Vladimir Putin, whether it will be the International Criminal Court in The Hague or whether it will be special tribunal for the crime of aggression, which I believe would be set up and would be organized by the countries who know that act of aggression was committed, who know that there is a gap in international law which does not allow by existing tools to punish the aggressor for the act of aggression, and which know that only establishing of special court or special tribunal, we could make Putin and his close surrounding liable, responsible for committing crime of aggression, because if crime of aggression would not have been committed, there would be no 68,000 war crimes committed then thereafter. Actually, we have such case in our Office of Prosecutor General, which is a big structural case. But due to personal immunity, we can't reach Putin, Russian Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs for their personal immunity. We can't reach them in Ukrainian courts and according to Ukrainian law. But we can reach them through the instrument of international tribunal. So if 6 months ago we have no support, we have just discussion. Now we have 20 countries who are ready to go ahead. Now we are in course of having resolution of General Assembly of United Nations, which is prepared for the next months in order to support the idea of full or comprehensive accountability of the of Russian aggressor, including all war crimes committed by them, including register of damage and compensation, and including all other elements which not only punish the aggressor by in all dimensions, but also should deter any future aggressor in any part of the globe from committing aggression.
Just a last question, Andriy Kostin. The issue of corruption. We know this is a central issue for EU accession of Ukraine. This is probably why we saw half a dozen defense officials accused of potential corruption. The deputy defense minister resigned. The homes of one of Ukraine's richest men, Ihor Kolomoisky, raided, despite the fact that he was previously close to President Zelensky. Is this a very deep problem in Ukraine that needs to be addressed very quickly in order to be able to access the EU?
This problem is addressed from the very first day of presidency of President Zelensky. This problem is addressed from the very first day of me being appointed of Prosecutor General. I will just quote my inaugural speech on 27th of July last year before the parliament, when I mentioned that Ukraine have two enemies. One external, which is Russia and its allies and collaborators, and second is the internal, which is corruption. And we understand that the fight against corruption is our steady and constant work. So we allocated resources, even in war times, to fight against corruption in all levels. And this is our principal commitment, because at the moment, if corruption exists, we react immediately. We changed fully the approach and culture in Ukraine. And if 10 years ago there was systematic corruption and sporadic response, now we have sporadic corruption but systematic response. All law enforcement agencies, including our anti-corruption infrastructure and all other, National Police, State Bureau of Investigation, State Security Service, Bureau of Economic Security, under the coordination of the Office of Prosecutor General, are fighting these cases and combating them, even if these cases occur within our law enforcement system. We are combating them as well. And this is our commitment to have our country fully operational after the war, in peace times, to be ready for the access to European Union, where we can show to everyone that we react at every fact of corruption, and every fact of corruption would be prosecuted and would be punished by Ukrainian judiciary.
Andriy Kostin, Prosecutor General of Ukraine, I want to thank you very much for appearing here on the France 24 interview, and thank you all for watching it.